Can gamers consent to be harmed? Last time, we discussed whether gambling or risk has any place in game design, recognizing what it can contribute to an experience while also acknowledging that the point is to engage with loss or harm. So this time we will ask, can a person consent to be harmed? By harm, I do not mean to say pain. This is a pro-kink channel. I mean rather a philosophical harm. A detriment, something that makes living worse and thriving difficult. The harm principle is one of the more simple and intuitive arguments for how to approach ethics and for introducing ethical thought experiments, stated simply as that which causes harm is immoral. When video games are good, people often tend toward playing them a lot. The inverse is also true. There are games designed intentionally to take a lot of your time before considering the quality of the experience. Just as gambling can be harmful to a person's life when they risk too much of their money, a game can be harmful to the rest of a person's life when they invest too much of their time. Yet, what will be considered too much or detrimental to a person's life is going to vary drastically from person to person. Playing video games for 2 hours a day may be a scant few hours to a child with nothing but free time in the summer, yet the same could be financially and relationally damning to a parent with 2 kids with a job and responsibilities that take priority. Or could be the perfect amount of time for a parent of 2 who works in the games industry or in games journalism. A person who makes $200,000 a year will think less about buying a video game than they do a sneeze, while a person who only makes $12,000 a year needs to think carefully about playing video games as a hobby at all. The harm is relative to what the person decides is the right way to live their life, relative to what the person deems meaningful and valuable by their own measure. Protagoras was famous for saying, "Man is the measure of all things," and while he was a sophist, mainly trying to assert that truth was relative in order to get people to pay him money, the phrase holds true for ethical standards based on how something affects an individual person. A person acting with full rational faculty does seem to be able to consent to harm, by consenting to the risk of harm. If the person is able to endure the harm without it drastically impacting their life, we may not even consider such minor losses as harm at all. Or if a person has asserted that the risk or the harm comes with enjoyment or some other meaningful value, such as theirs to decide. Should they overextend themselves and realize their limit was closer than once imagined, it is best for that person to take the lesson and grow accordingly. No one is responsible for insulating others from making mistakes. The individual person is ultimately the best actor, the best equipped to make that decision in the vast majority of cases. Individual responsibility will always remain a factor for how we should scrutinize the creation and intention of a game designer. A designer ought not be predatory, and a player ought not be foolhardy. A player is responsible for their own limits, and while it would be virtuous for the creator of a game to adopt the extended value of "I am my brother's keeper," to damn the design of a game based on risk means also to damn the desire to experience risk. To moralize on this point would mean to pass judgment on both the perceived culprit and the perceived victim. Vampire Survivors is a game that costs $5 to experience the majority of its gameplay. As a roguelite genre game, it was designed with 30-minute play sessions in mind for everyone but the most dedicated players who find a strategy to go further. My time with the free browser version of the game involved learning different strategies as I began to memorize each wave of enemies, planning different builds, and discovering my preferred synergies. Once I managed to create a build strong enough to reach the 30-minute mark, having created so much chaos that the game slowed to 1 frame per second, I was happy with my experience and stopped playing the game entirely. I would only pick up the game again months later after the free mobile version of Vampire Survivors released to experience the full game. Now compare that to the landscape of other games that use other strategies to get you to invest, and decide whether the experience of playing the game is meaningful enough for you to spend that money and time with it. But what are we to make of the situation in which one has their ability to consent itself removed? What about video game compulsion? We will explore that next time. Stay true. Air conditioning is going to start again. We're still going, which is going to suck for editing Alex in the future.